The algorithm betrays you. What I think is happening, and which is really fascinating to me, is that like people have this idea, and me included, until just probably in the last 4 or 5 years, I've really been trying to prevent myself from falling into this. Have really believed that the choices we make online, like the things that we want to watch, the people that we follow, the content in which we engage in, is ours. Like it's our choice. And over the many years, and I think it was during the 2017 year when President Trump was elected, because during that whole year, it was probably it was like the most unproductive and unhappiest I've ever been, especially online. And I was just like, dude, what? And it's because I was mad about a lot of stuff, and everybody else was mad about a lot of stuff. And it made me realize when I would go and look at my social media feed that it's just filled with people being mad about stuff. Like there's always something to be mad about. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. And so I ultimately ended up doing something where I call it purging my algorithm. I went out of my way to make my algorithm a lot more lighthearted. I remember what I did. I basically watched countless, countless videos of Key and Peele sketches and skits, along with stand-up comedy. I watched tons of stand-up comedy because it was like levity. And I think that's also probably why a lot of stand-up comedy has flourished over the many years because people were locked in their homes. People were also um, kind of feeling like there's a lot of things to be upset about. And then having people bring levity to that was nice. And the authenticity of it just was very helpful. And having podcasters and online commentary um, that was more entertaining was more sought out. But the thing has happened again where now these very places of release, at least from my perspective, the things that I believe that used to bring me, some balance of, you know, political insight and news is now the thing that's like constantly engaging in political insight and news. And I'm just like, I'm over it. I was over it since 2017. And I've truly tried to stay away from it. And I think in the last few years again, it was really hard to avoid. I think many of us can relate to this, regardless of where you stand politically. Let me just remind many of you guys who are in my younger audience, or let me remind those of you who are in my older audience, and kind of also bring light to my younger audience, what the internet used to kind of be like, especially as an artist, from the perspective of an artist. It used to just be awesome. Seeing all sorts of incredible artists sharing their work online, lots of really cool podcasting and insight into worlds that we never had a chance to see inside before. Getting great um, content just from the YouTube itself, from scientists talking about how the world works and how like just basic things were, and then just having light-hearted, fun-loving social media encounters, like just people posting silly memes and goofy stuff. I mean, this is kind of the allure of something like TikTok for now, but trust that it will also be a cesspool. It is inevitable, as far as I can tell, if it hasn't already. um, and it's because at the end of the day, and this is kind of the algorithm betrays you part. This is kind of the heart of my thesis here. At the end of the day, really negative news, drama, stuff of that nature just does well. I used to tell my students, like, be careful of like what you put in your algorithms, because you got to remember, a lot of the people who are designing and engineering these things, they want you to stay on their platform at all costs, whether you like it or not. And keep this in mind, whether you like it or whether you do not like it, meaning they don't care that you might actually be having a bad experience. As long as engagement is high, then they are ultimately being profitable. They are making a dime. And you can't get mad at this inherently, because we are the problem, right? We are fueling these algorithms. And as much as I would appreciate some sort of, you know, clamp or some sort of, you know, I don't know how else to say it. It's like regulative body to come in and know what's best for all of us. But I think that's a genuinely good critique as well. It's like, is that possible? And I don't know, man. I honestly have no clue, to be fair. I would like to think that the, you know, people who could help regulate would do a good job, but I don't think incompetence ends with looking at the greed of the wealthy. I think it also is just a matter of human nature. We tend to do this to ourselves. There's this a great example of, I remember hearing that New York was trying to put a sugar tax on like 32-ounce sodas, which I agree with. I agree that people should not actually be drinking all that. That's too much soda, man. Take it easy, homies. And as they were trying to pass it, like, New York in mass is like, you can't be telling us how we consume foods and what have you. And part of me is like, yeah, okay, like, this is just kind of the nature of things. And what I see, like, in other nations where they don't have this type of problem, and it starts to become more evident that they, like, have a lot of these regulations and these systems in place, you might argue, well, look, they're doing their part, and look, it's working out. But it's also, like, important to kind of pay attention to, like, the nuances and the challenges of all this. Like, at what point is there, like, these types of freedoms, when we remove them, what are we sacrificing? You know? And I can feel it now. I can feel what this is looking like as I see more and more censorship, more and more of, like, ironically, like, more government interference, and in all the worst ways, in my opinion. It only benefits other folks outside of our nation, and it demonstrated to me the power of our ability to be more free and be more open to new ideas, and even if they're terrible, even if we hate them as a larger nation, there's something about all of this access that is absolutely a Pandora's box, not only for just all the consequences of having some of the most hateful and despicable people saying the most hateful and despicable things, but also, like, people that feel free to say powerful things, interesting things, wonderful things, you know, incredible things that can inspire lots of people because they are free and they have this freedom. And so it's like this kind of double-edged blade. I feel like it's really tough for me. I have a hard time with this, honestly. Like, I genuinely, and being clear with you guys, like, I have no clue. And I don't want to make any political statement here, to be frank. I don't even know why I kind of started went on this. I think it was just on my mind. Oh, I know why. It's because I the whole like, analogous point I'm making here, or the parallel point I'm making, is that the internet feels that way too, at least so far. At least in my part of the world, it feels this way, where lots of content can be made. You can have people saying things about like AI. You can have some people talk about other artists, and you can talk about like different ways to make art. And there's a lot of it, and a lot of it's great, and a lot of it is, probably I don't want to say it's not great. I don't want to say it's the opposite of that, but it could be maybe a distraction, right? Maybe it's not what you need to know or learn at this moment or care to know and learn ever. But it's exposed to you and it's rewarded, especially if there's some drama attached to it, as soon as there's some controversy. And I find myself and others, we get trapped within these algorithms that are basically shaping who we are. It's weird. It's weird to think that you aren't as in control as you might think of your opinions. And I believe this is true for many of us, truly. And I don't want to believe that I am free from my algorithms and my beliefs and all this stuff. But I find that every time I talk to somebody who doesn't agree or doesn't have my perspective on things, man, I come out of it stronger. I have some opportunity to learn more about myself and what I actually care about and challenge those ideas. And I find that with these algorithms as artists, like what kind of artist do you want to be? If your algorithms are feeding you stuff that you don't even actually care about, but because you keep clicking on it because it's so enticing and so entertaining, just understand that's what's probably happening. I remember one time I was talking to somebody and they were like, hey, like how do you make your YouTube more productive? Like my YouTube's just filled with a bunch of sexy Asian ladies and it's like really distracting. Like I don't know how to break free from that. I was like, you might have self-reported yourself a bit here. I was like, the algorithm is only showing you what you're clicking on. So if you're clicking on sexy Asian ladies, which there's plenty of them, I'm sure, then you're probably going to get more of that, not less of it. And he started laughing. He's like, yeah, you're probably right. He didn't realize that it's not like an isolate, or it's not like it's an isolated situation. It's not like a general thing that's happening to everybody. Everybody's algorithm looks different from everybody else's. If you go to a club or bar or whatever, and you say, let me see your YouTube feed, you can get a good clue of where somebody's headspace is at the moment. For better or for worse. I don't want to be controversial here. I generally do not. I'm trying to use these examples to kind of help you guys see the framing of my point here. And the reason why this has been really sticking with me is because even just recently, as the last few months, where I've been finding myself just in constant negative feedback, it felt like everything I was encountering was just some sort of negative feedback. It was getting tiresome and I felt annoyed by it. I felt like I didn't have much control over what was going on in my life because I was just constantly filled with just negative information, and I want to be honest, like I'm still not out of the clear. I still get this stuff. It's hard not to. But what I will say that I've done that has been really awesome is to just generally purge my algorithms often. And I got a glimpse of this yesterday. So I put a couple videos out about my lack of interest of this AI revolution. I think it's kind of foolish. And I'm realizing that there is going to be more need for something more auxiliary, something more authentic. And that I'm going to double down on this because I believe it to be true. I am putting my money where my mouth is. And so a lot of what I've been doing too, like I'm going to start to look into more traditional materials, get more. I told myself this morning how wonderful it could be to completely convert my entire workflow that I do for like my actual jobs if I can just start to just transition to more traditional and maybe use digital as a supplementary tool, you know? But at the end of the day, just paint everything, draw everything, and just turn that in for my work. I might have to invest in some more expensive stuff like scanners and better tools to digitize my work. But this fascinates me. But as a consequence of falling into this new state of mind, and I'm looking for this type of content again, I am trying to stick shift and gear my algorithms to do what I want to fucking do, not what it wants me to do. And so I just started looking for more traditional artists. I started trying to find, and I started sharing the traditional artists' work on my Instagram stories. For many of you guys who follow me might have been seeing a lot of that. And dude, it's recommended me so many incredible artists. And I feel like it's like the good old days again, where the internet was a lot lighthearted and there was just nothing but badass art being shared all the fucking time. There are so many great artists, of course there are, that I have no clue they exist because my algorithms before were mainly digital, right? At least on my Instagram. And then on YouTube, I would watch whatever controversies out. And then I stopped doing that. I started to try to find other YouTubers as a tool of reference, like to kind of see what other content creators are doing, to see what gap needs to be filled. And I think the authentic artist gap is a big one. I think having somebody who is a professional artist like myself, able to talk and draw, has a lot of inherent value. Many of you guys really appreciate just drawing with me. I think that is a market in which I belong in, and I'm happy to be a part of, and make it work for me. I think it fits perfectly who I am as a person, as well as an artist. And now I'm starting to see a lot of that. I'm like, oh, yeah, well, I didn't know this artist existed. Oh, I didn't know this YouTuber. And I'm just starting to get flooded with such awesome influences. And it just demonstrates to me that these algorithms, when left to their own devices, will bring out the worst of us, generally and pretty consistently. I think this is just true. If you don't have any mindful guidance to what you're trying to get from the internet will make you be mad. The internet will make you frustrated. The internet will make you anxious when left to its own devices, because it is the kind of content that does very well. And there's a lot of it. And because there's a lot of it, and you inch your way into that room and it's like, oh, come on in, and then just throws you a quadrillion influences that will keep you locked into that mentality all day, every day, for years. But good and great art content may not be entertaining, but it is incredibly informative. It's incredibly educational. It is what's going to bring way more fulfillment and enjoyment to your life. Sitting down, listening to some of these great creators, finding some of these great creators and artists, and being inspired by their work, by their words, And I was just reminded of this just in the past week or two. And just yesterday, it really hit me as I was getting flooded with amazing fucking content. This is why Pinterest is one of my favorite referencing tools, because it rabbit holes you in all the best ways. If you click on one type of art, it has a really good way of sorting out more art that is similar. And it was ruined for a bit with the AI art. But I think they realized, okay, we got to get a fucking grip on this, which is great because it feels familiar to what I am used to about Pinterest before, like the internet. And I was watching some younger YouTubers, and I feel like these younger artists are kind of demonstrating that there is more to the internet, and that they also feel that the internet is kind of lame. I was listening to a few of them, and they're kind of like touch grass essentially, which I believe is the case. I think the internet, again, left to its own devices, is not becoming as useful as a tool as it once was, man, which is a shame. It could truly be a powerful tool, more so than it already is. But now, I think in-person stuff is going to just be more valuable. Real things are just going to become more valuable, and the people are just going to use the internet as a source of transit. You know, no different than a landline telephone. For those of you who have no clue what the hell that is, there used to be a time where, you didn't have a phone on your body every second of the day. You had to literally be somewhere that the phone was connected to telephone lines to be able to call people. They either use payphones that were just randomly on every other block on the streets. You can use those, or you can have one in your house and you just call people. I remember if I had a friend who had a phone number he was giving me, I would have to memorize it, go home, and then like call him that way. I used to memorize like dozens of people's phones just in my head because I had to, unless you have like a phone book or something. But now I don't know like anyone's phone number except for maybe one or two people. But internet might be something just similar to that, where it's just a way to get a hold of people. It's not going to necessarily be as enjoyable a place as it once was. It might be a great tool for education. I think that's still pretty plausible. I think it'll still be a good tool for marketing and product awareness. But you can only, like, people can only be sad and anxious for so long, and if they step outside, go to like a sketch group in real life, and it goes as well as I could ever imagine it would go, because sketch groups are usually pretty fucking tight. They're just not going to be convinced that stuff on here on the internet is just better than that, outside of like maybe one or two things that they enjoy. I find that people use Discord a lot. That Discord becomes like this new social media platform that's really popular. I mentioned in a different video, like WhatsApp is pretty popular social media tool, but it's like, you don't think of it that way. You think of it as just like a telephone, like just communicating, which proves to me that group chats of some sort or community-based apps that are absolutely built for communities have tremendous value, because we are still humans and our technology can't outpace our humanity, So just keep this in mind. If you feel that you aren't being as productive as you like, take it from me as somebody who was influenced by my internet algorithm in such a negative way that I'm telling you, that was by far the worst year in terms of my happiness. And it was also the worst year in terms of my productivity. I consider myself a pretty productive guy. And that year I was just doing nothing of real value. I mean, I was working, but I wasn't doing any personal stuff. I was always just angry. I was snapping at my children more often than I normally would. Like I was just like, what's going on? And so, yeah, I want to hopefully make this video as a snap out of it for folks, because truly there's some nefarious things going on that honestly, I think some of it is, it's not as malicious as it might appear. It might just be indirect. And some of it is malicious. But either way, I feel like people just need to snap out of it. So if you got this video and you watched all the way through, much love. Type in the word purge the algorithm in your comments if you got to the end of this, and then leave me any of your own experiences that you found that your algorithm was betraying you, And to be 100% clear again, I am not free from this. It is, I'm telling you, it is a battle. It is an active choice to try to not get gaslit by your own fucking algorithm. It is yours. They're feeding it to you because it works. So try to have it speak to you and work in your favor, not in your demise. So anyway, hope this works really well for some of you guys. Hopefully some of you guys who might be locked and stuck with your algo, like can snap out of it and have a better one, a better really working relationship with it. And for those of you that might be angry more often than not, like honestly, I feel for you. I relate to that, but it's just no way to navigate the world. Life is too short, and there are definitely things, and I can't be clear enough on this, that are worth being upset about, genuinely. And I don't think you should be afraid of being mad at something. But there are times and places where levity and enjoyment and having moments of peace can allow you to be a better fighter for later, especially if you have something worth fighting for. Go for it. Otherwise, yeah, I think it's time to chill, y'all, truly. And in terms of politics, I don't think I'll ever really go fully deep into my political opinions about stuff. I think in private I do all the time, just because it's fine. And it's usually I have an opportunity to have a conversation with people that I agree with or disagree with, and it's more, there's more opportunity, right? And I usually come in pretty good faith. But I told myself if I ever really want to get deep into political discussions and commentary and whatever, I told myself the only reason I will ever do that is if I actually want to get into politics. Meaning, like I run for mayor or some shit like this. Like where I'm actually going to walk the talk. I think that that's just the kind of personality that I am. It's nice to kind of theory craft, but until you get behind closed doors, it becomes more of a reality. And I would love to be the kind of person, if that happens to me, try to reveal as much truth as possible and come at it from as pragmatic and practical perspective and fueled by empathy as humanly possible. The same way that I teach art. Like I've worked for I worked on lots of projects as a concept artist and art director. So I have a lot of perspective that I help like shape my students' minds to understand some things that you might hear on the internet. It's a little too sensational, and some stuff is spot on, right? And I try to do my best to do that online as well to give some insight. I actually have some video ideas that it's going to be very much like how a recruiter, I think, thinks, and to give you a perspective of what that would be like. But I've been there. I've been a recruiter. I've worked with recruiters. I've seen how we recruit. I've seen other companies recruit. I've seen them succeed. I've seen it fail. I've seen it all. Granted, I haven't seen it all every single moment, but I've seen enough that there's a lot of echoes and rhythms that I could probably feel comfortable explaining and confident that it's good advice. But I'll probably still preface like everywhere is different and things different. So I think if I ever were to do quote unquote politics, like I don't want to be a person who talks about it, just like I don't want to be a person who talks about being a good artist. I try to be a good artist, So if I want to be a political commentator, then I want to like to be first a good politician. And just to be very clear, I don't want to do that. So that's why I don't comment on it. Again, I have my opinions on it, but that's all they are, my fucking opinions. And they can be very bad and they can be very good, but opinions can change, actions make change, right? And so I'm not in that headspace. Maybe in the future something might reveal to me that I should get in there. But I don't see that happening. I see myself just staying in this space, doing the good work for my own community of artists. Because we need people like myself, I believe, to help bring the light back. I think a lot of darkness has been shadowing the entire industry a little bit too much for my liking. I don't know if I said this in a bit different video, but I went to Lightbox this last year, which was an event in Pasadena, California. And it was the first time that I ran into several students who wanted to quit art. I've gone to dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of events in my entire career. This is the first time people were like, what's the point? And that bothers me very much. So I'm doing my part. Anyway, leave a comment, say purge the algorithm, and then let me know what you did and what you ran into and the challenges you've encountered. Any advice you give to your peers, leave in the comments. And with that, yeah, support your fellow artists, share, like, subscribe, do whatever you need to do for not just for myself, for all the other artists that you think are doing a good job. If you haven't already given them these things, I'm doing my part. I'm starting to do that. I'm starting to go around finding like artists that I didn't know existed and liking and sharing their work. Cause I'm tired of just seeing all of the bad news all the time. Art is one of those things that transcends tragedy that surrounds us, even in times of war, right? They would have fucking drummers and musicians play to bring morale up during literally the heat of epic battles, So we got to do our part, artists. We got to bring back the light, help our fellow man. Anyway, have a good rest of your day. See you guys in my next video.